first thing you should know is that Dean owed me $43 for exactly 11 months before any of this happened. And I bring that up because it tells you everything about how normal our life was. We weren't the kind of roommates who had deep talks at 2 a.m., we were the kind who argued about whether hot sauce counts as a shared condiment or a personal item. And somehow that argument lasted 3 days and involved a whiteboard. I'm Callum. I was 26 that year, working a job I didn't hate but didn't love either, doing marketing copy for a company that sold ergonomic office chairs, which is a sentence I still can't say without laughing a little. Dean was my roommate of 2 years, 27, worked in construction estimating, had a girlfriend named Priya for most of the time I knew him, and talked about her constantly in that specific way straight guys do when they're trying to convince themselves as much as anyone else that things are fine. I want to be clear about something before I go further because I think it matters. I never had a secret thing for Dean. People who tell these stories sometimes make it sound like they were quietly in love the whole time, hiding it, waiting. That wasn't me. Dean was my friend. He left dishes in the sink for 4 days at a time. He sang off-key in the shower, always the same 3 Fleetwood Mac songs. He was, by every account I would have given you at the time, just a guy I lived with. A good one. Nothing more. So when I tell you what happened on that Thursday, I need you to understand I didn't see any of it coming. Not the first part. Definitely not the second. It started with Priya leaving. Not leaving the relationship that had already happened about 6 weeks earlier, quietly, the way most breakups happen when two people have just slowly stopped choosing each other. I mean, she was moving, out of state for a job, and that Thursday was the day she came by to pick up the last of her things from Dean's room. A blender, some books. A framed photo of the two of them at a wedding that Dean had clearly forgotten was still on his dresser. Because when she picked it up and just held it for a second, I watched something happen in his face that I still think about. He didn't cry in front of her. He's not really a crier, or wasn't back then. He helped her carry 2 boxes to her car, made a joke about her terrible parallel parking, and then came back inside and went straight to his room without saying anything to me. I gave him about 40 minutes, then I knocked. Are you eating dinner tonight, or are we doing the thing where you pretend you're not hungry and then eat cereal at 11? I said through the door, because that's how we talk to each other. Nothing soft. Nothing that would let either of us admit something was actually wrong. There was a pause longer than I expected. Come in, I guess, he said, and his voice sounded strange, thick. I opened the door and he was sitting on the edge of his bed, not crying exactly but close to it. In that way where a guy's jaw gets tight and his eyes go glassy, and he's fighting it with everything he's got because somewhere along the way somebody taught him that this wasn't allowed. Hey, I said, and I sat down next to him, not too close. You don't have to be okay right now. I'm fine, he said, which was the most obvious lie either of us had told all year. Dean, I don't even know why it's hitting me like this, he said, rubbing his palms against his jeans. We weren't even together anymore. I should be fine with this. You can be over the relationship and still be sad it's actually ending, I said. Those aren't the same thing. He looked at me then, and I remember thinking his eyes looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. Can I tell you something and you not make it weird, he said. I make everything weird, that's kind of my whole thing, but sure. He almost laughed, almost. I don't think I was ever that sad about Priya specifically, he said slowly, like each word cost him something. I think I've just been sad for a long time and she was easier to blame it on. Okay, I said carefully, sad about what? He was quiet for a long time, long enough that I almost said something to fill the silence, which is a habit of mine I'm not proud of, but something told me to just wait. I think I've been lying to myself about a lot of stuff, he finally said. Like big stuff, and today just kind of cracked something open I don't know. What kind of stuff? He looked at me and then looked away at his hands at the wall, anywhere but my face. I think I might have feelings for you, he said. Like not friend feelings, I don't know. I've never said that out loud before to anyone about anyone, and I don't even know what it means. It's been sitting in me for a while, and today everything feels like it's falling apart anyway, so I don't know why I'm not saying it. I did not say anything for what felt like an embarrassingly long time. I want to describe what that moment actually felt like because it wasn't the movie version. There wasn't a swell of music in my chest. There wasn't clarity. It was mostly just static, this loud, confused hum where my brain usually is, because nothing about this fit anywhere in the story I had about my own life, let alone his. Dean, I said eventually, and my voice came out smaller than I meant it to. You're straight. I know, he said immediately, too fast, like he'd already had this argument with himself 100 times before he ever got to me. I know, forget I said anything, I don't even know what that was, I think I'm just messed up right now because of the whole Priya thing, ignore me. Dean. Seriously, forget it, he said, standing up so fast he nearly knocked his lamp off the nightstand. I'm gonna go for a walk. And he did. He grabbed his hoodie and left, and I sat on his bed alone for a solid 2 minutes just staring at the spot where he'd been sitting, trying to figure out if that had actually happened or if I'd somehow imagined an entire conversation. I want to tell you I handled the rest of that day with grace, I did not. I texted my best friend Marisol something like, okay, so a lot just happened and I need to talk to someone who isn't going to lose their mind, and then proceeded to send her 11 voice memos over the next hour, each one more incoherent than the last. She called me back, sounding like she'd just run up several flights of stairs. Wait, back up, she said. Dean, you're Dean. Fantasy football, doesn't know how to use the dishwasher, talks about Priya's cousin's wedding for 45 minutes, Dean. That's the one. And he said he has feelings for you. And then immediately said forget it and left the apartment. Callum. I know. How do you feel? That was the question I couldn't answer, because the honest truth is I didn't know. I wasn't sitting there secretly overjoyed. The way I think people expect these stories to go, I also wasn't disgusted or freaked out. I was just unsteady, like the floor of my own apartment had quietly changed shape while I wasn't looking, and now I had to relearn how to walk through it. I don't know, I told her, which felt like the only true thing I could say. I think I need to just see him again before I know anything. Dean didn't come home for almost 3 hours. When he finally did, I was on the couch pretending to watch something I wasn't actually watching, and I heard his key in the door and my whole body went tense in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with not having a script for this. He came in, saw me, and stopped in the doorway like he was recalculating whether to just go straight to his room. Hey, I said. Hey, he said back quietly. You want to sit down, or are we doing the thing where we both pretend the last 3 hours didn't happen? He let out a breath that was almost a laugh but not quite, and came and sat on the far end of the couch, putting more space between us than usual, which somehow said more than anything he could have told me directly. I'm sorry about earlier, he said, staring at the muted TV. That was a lot, I don't even know where that came from. Was it true though? I said. That's kind of the only part that matters to me right now, not whether it was a lot, whether it was true. He didn't answer right away. I think I've had like a feeling, he said slowly, working it out as he spoke, for a while now, longer than I want to admit, and I kept telling myself it was just, I don't know, closeness, like we're roommates, we're close, that's just what that feels like. But then today with Priya, watching her carry that picture out, I didn't feel sad about losing her, he said. I felt sad because some part of me has known for months that I was staying in that relationship because it was safe and easy, and it let me not look at the actual thing I was avoiding. Which is? He turned his head and looked at me, and this time he didn't look away. You, he said. I think it's you. I think I've had feelings for you for months, and I panicked earlier and said it wrong and then panicked again and ran out, and I've spent the last 3 hours walking in circles trying to figure out if I should come back and pretend none of it happened or actually tell you the truth. And which one is this? I don't know yet, he admitted. I'm still deciding while I'm talking, if that makes sense. I've never said any of this out loud before, not to myself, not to anyone. I sat with that for a second. I could feel my own heartbeat, actually feel it, in a way you don't normally notice your body doing its job. Okay, I said, can I ask you something, and I need you to actually think about it before you answer, not just say whatever gets us out of this conversation faster. Okay. Is this about me, I said, or is this about you figuring something out about yourself that just happens to have my face attached to it right now? He actually thought about it. I watched him think about it, which I appreciated more than I could say, because it would have been so easy for him to just say the comforting thing. I think it's both, he said finally. I think there's something about myself I've been avoiding for a long time, and I also think specifically it's you. Not in a hypothetical way, not like, oh, I think I might be into guys in general. It's more like you're the person who made me stop being able to avoid it. That's a lot to put on one person. I know, he said. I know it's not fair to you. I'm not trying to make this your responsibility. I panicked earlier because I said it and it felt too big and too real and I didn't know how to just sit there and let you respond, so I ran. And I've regretted running the entire time I was gone. I looked at him for a long moment. This is the part where, if this were one of those cinematic stories, I'd tell you I closed the distance between us and everything resolved beautifully right then. But that's not what happened because that's not how any of this actually works when it's real. I need you to know something, I said. I'm not going to pretend I don't care about you, I do. I have for 2 years as a friend, and if I'm being fully honest with myself right now, probably in some other quieter way too, one I never let myself look at directly because you were straight and it seemed pointless. His breath caught just slightly. I kept going before I lost my nerve. But I'm not going to be the thing you use to figure out who you are, I said. If this is real, it has to be real on its own, not because Priya left. Not because today felt like everything was falling apart and you needed something solid to grab onto. I need to know the difference, and honestly, Dean, I don't think you know it yet either. He nodded slowly, and there was something in his face that looked almost relieved, like I'd said the thing he'd been too scared to say to himself. That's fair, he said quietly. That's more than fair. We didn't solve anything that night. I want to be honest about that because I think stories like this often skip the part where nothing gets solved, where two people just sit in the discomfort of an unfinished conversation because that's what real life actually requires sometimes. We sat on that couch for another hour, talking about smaller things, his job, my job, a show we'd both started and both fallen behind on, like two people carefully stepping around a hole in the floor without acknowledging it's there. And then we both went to bed, and I lay awake for a long time listening to the pipes creak in the upstairs neighbor's footsteps, and trying to figure out what I actually felt underneath all the noise in my head. The next few days were strange in a way that's hard to describe if you haven't lived it. We were still roommates. We still argued about hot sauce, technically, though the argument felt hollow now, like we were both just performing normal because neither of us knew how to be anything else yet. He'd catch me looking at him sometimes and look away too fast. I'd catch him doing the same thing. About 4 days after that Thursday, I came home from work to find him sitting at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of coffee, one clearly poured for me, going cold. I looked some stuff up, he said before I even got my shoes off. Like actually look stuff up, not just panicking and having a feeling and then running away from it. I talked to my brother. I didn't tell him everything, but I asked him some things about how he knew things about himself back when he was figuring out his own stuff, because I never really asked him properly before. I just sort of accepted his life without asking what it took to get there. I sat down across from him. And I said, "And I think I've been scared of this for a really long time," he said. "Longer than you, longer than Priya, honestly. I think there were signs way before I met you and I just filed them under something else. Told myself they were normal guy stuff, admiring a friend, whatever." "Okay. I'm not telling you this because I want you to fix it or tell me it's okay," he said. "I'm telling you because you asked me to figure out if this was real and I actually tried. I didn't just sit with the feeling and hope it went away or hope it stayed conveniently vague. I looked at it." "And what did you find?" He looked at me, and this time there was none of the panic from that first Thursday. It was slower, steadier. "I found out I've had a crush on my roommate for the better part of a year," he said, and there was something almost like a laugh in his voice, the kind that comes out when a truth is both terrifying and a relief at the same time. "And that it's not about Priya, and it's not about today falling apart, and it's not about needing something solid to hold on to. It's just you. It's been you for a while." I didn't say anything right away. I don't think I could have, honestly. There's a specific kind of quiet that happens when something you'd quietly stopped letting yourself hope for turns out to be real, and I was sitting in the middle of it. "You're being quiet," he said, and for the first time all week I heard actual fear in his voice, not performance, not panic, real fear, the kind you only risk once you've already put everything on the table. "Say something, please." "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "I thought I'd have some big response ready by now. I've had 4 days to think about this and I still don't know what to say." "That's okay," he said, though I could tell it cost him something to say. "You don't owe me a response right now. I just needed you to know I actually did the work. I'm not asking you to jump into anything. I just didn't want to be the guy who said something huge and then never followed up on whether it was real." I looked at him, really looked, the way you look at someone when you're trying to see past the version of them you already had filed away in your head, and something in me just quietly shifted into place, the way a key finally finds the right lock after turning uselessly for a while. Can I tell you the truth? I said. Please. I've spent 4 days telling myself I wasn't allowed to hope this was real, I said. Because hopping felt stupid. Because you were straight, and even after Thursday, I figured people panic and say things and take them back, and I didn't want to be the guy who built something in his head out of one bad day. It wasn't a bad day, he said quietly. I know that now. I'm starting to believe you, I said. But I need you to know this can't be fast. I don't want us pretending 2 years of friendship and one hard week suddenly means we know how to do this. I want to actually figure it out, slowly, without either of us performing certainty we don't have yet. I can do it slowly, he said, and for the first time in days he actually smiled, small and a little embarrassed, like he wasn't used to letting himself feel something good yet. I'm kind of new at all of this, in case you couldn't tell. I noticed, I said, and I smiled back, and something in my chest that had been clenched for 4 days finally let go just a little. We didn't kiss that night. I know that's probably not the ending you expected, and it's not the ending I expected either, if I'm honest. What happened instead was smaller and I think more real. He reached across the table and put his hand over mine, careful, like he was still testing whether he was allowed to, and I let him, and we just sat there for a long time in the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. It took us another 6 weeks before either of us said the word boyfriend out loud, and even then it came out clumsy, half joking, the way big words do when two people are still getting used to carrying them. He came out to his brother properly not long after, and then slowly, carefully to a few close friends on his own time, on his own terms, and I never once pushed him to go faster than he could. I think about that Thursday a lot still, not because it was romantic, it wasn't, not really, not in the moment. It was messy and confusing and full of a guy running out the door because he couldn't handle the size of his own honesty. But I think about it because it taught me something I didn't expect to learn at 26, which is that the most important confessions in your life rarely arrive polished. They stumble out of people sideways, badly timed, wrapped in panic, and you have to decide whether you're willing to wait for the second, steadier version before you believe the first one. He gave me that steadier version, eventually, and I'm still here, still in that same apartment, still arguing about hot sauce sometimes, except now when I catch him looking at me across the kitchen, he doesn't look away.